The football season is almost here. The Hall of Fame game is in the books. And every time I jump on Twitter to check out NFL news, it seems like players are dropping quicker than dresses on prom night. So let's get you up to date on all the news out of training camp. Hey, what is going on? Headliner Nation, welcome back to the Fantasy Headliners. Kyle coming to you from the Draft.com studios. Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode where we're going to be breaking down a lot of the news out of training camp right now, get you up to date and get you up to speed on what it means from a fantasy football perspective. But before we jump into all of that information, don't forget the Fantasy Headliners Draft Guide, only $19.99. Get it right now on the fantasyheadliners.com. If you purchase a draft guide before August 15th, you're going to be in a drawing to win a signed Alvin Kamara jersey. Almost 500 pages of hashtag hella fire content in that draft guide. So it's a win-win, an awesome draft guide and a chance to win a signed jersey. Go get yours right now, thefantasyheadliners.com, only $19.99. But let's jump into it. It's time to talk about what's going on in training camp. And one of the most notable stories out of the last few days is Theo Riddick signing with the Denver Broncos. That backfield was already a mess from a fantasy football perspective. We have a lot of people who are on the Phillip Lindsay train. I 100% get that. But we have a lot of people who are absolutely on the train of Royce Freeman's going to make some sort of an impact this year. And here at the Fantasy Headliners, we agree on that Royce Freeman take. In fact, I included him in a show not too long ago talking about why he's a guy you need to keep an eye on. But with all that being said, now you have Theo Riddick in the mix as well. So what's going to happen there? Royce Freeman is going to get a lot of work on the ground carrying the football this year. And I also expected him to work in a little bit of pass catching duties as well. And then seeing Phillip Lindsay being the main pass catching back, the main third down back, the guy that's out there for the most pass plays. However, Theo Riddick is probably going to take away from Phillip Lindsay more than he takes away from Royce Freeman because of that. Theo Riddick, a guy the last 4 years, 90, 65, 70, 72 targets each of the last 4 seasons. He's a guy that works well in the passing game, and he did that while he was in Detroit. Keep this in mind about Phillip Lindsay. I like Phillip Lindsay a lot. An excellent story. I rooted for him all season last year. I think he's a good player. However, Phillip Lindsay is an outlier. Phillip Lindsay is the exception. He is not the norm. For his profile, for his height and weight, for a lot of different things, there are no other instances in the NFL of a guy doing what Phillip Lindsay did last year. So can you blame the Broncos for maybe trying to bring in a little bit of backup or someone to help just in case Phillip Lindsay just doesn't perform the way he did last year? This backfield is even more tough for me to draft now on any draft day, regardless of format. So at this point, I'm probably going to shy away from all of them, and I'm going to look to maybe make a trade or pick someone up off the waiver wire in season when we see how this works out a little bit. But for right now, hands off that backfield. Maybe a little bit of a surprise for some people, but Matt Kalil, he was center for the Carolina Panthers. Last season was supposed to be his last year. If you watch the documentary on the Carolina Panthers that was on Amazon Prime, you got a real good look at Matt Kalil and what he's done for that organization in terms of being a steady player for his entire career. All of a sudden, out of retirement, headed to the New York Jets. This is a good upgrade for them. They needed a little bit of help on that offensive line. However, the offensive line, this just doesn't automatically revamp it. Does it help? Yes. It's always great to have that veteran leadership on a team, especially a guy like him, especially an offensive lineman, even a center. However, I'm not going to say this is a huge upgrade for Le'Veon Bell. I think it helps a little bit, but it's still not enough for me to jump in there and say, I'm going to move Le'Veon Bell a couple of spots. I'm going to move Sam Darnold. I'm going to move pass catchers or tight ends. Not that much, but it is worth noting that he is out of retirement and with the Jets. Something that we want to keep an eye on as that offensive line plays out, as training camp plays out, and as everybody gets healthy and gets working in that offense. We could see that make a little bit more of a difference than we expect to right now. So for the second straight offseason, we do have to worry about Andrew Luck a little bit. And with that being said, I don't think we need to worry that much. Right now, he's dealing with a strained calf, only supposed to be about 2 weeks. Honestly, they're probably just playing it safe with him. That's the one thing I caution fantasy owners at this time of the year about. Just because a guy's going to miss 2 weeks doesn't necessarily mean that his injury should be that concerning for us, because right now, this early in camp, they're going to be a little bit more safe than sorry, especially with a guy like Andrew Luck. So even though it might be a little bit of a calf strain and they say, you know what, if this were the regular season, you could be out there playing every single day, he's not going to. It's training camp. There's no reason for him to potentially injure himself more. Take a couple of weeks off, stay in the weight room, keep working with everybody in the meeting rooms. It's fine. I'm not worrying about Andrew Luck. He is still my quarterback one for 2019. So something I heard over the last couple of days, I don't really have anything to link this back to because it was a couple of random tweets, and I don't know specifically how in-depth or in the know these tweeters are. But there has been a little bit of a talk of potential Carlos Hyde cut. Now, a lot of people with Damian Williams are either on board or off board. There isn't a whole lot of people that are kind of in between. I haven't been a guy that's investing in Damian Williams for several different reasons. Now, was I not investing in Damian Williams because of Carlos Hyde? No, I was not. The reason I wasn't investing in Damian Williams is because, number one, he does have several seasons under his belt and has never been able to do this before. He might have some injury issues, and this week he's been dealing with a hamstring issue. So if Damian Williams is dealing with a hamstring issue, and Carlos Hyde is going to be cut potentially, or maybe he's not going to be that big of a factor, then you know the name that we're going to talk about next, and that's Darwin Thompson. Now let me tell you, if this is your first time on the channel, make sure you go check out one of my deep sleeper videos because I talked about Darwin Thompson in depth. And this is a guy that 100% is a late round stash in all of my fantasy leagues right now. I don't care about the format. I don't care how deep it is. I am spending one of my last 2 picks instead of drafting a kicker or a tight end, a kicker or a defense. Draft a tight end. Don't skip on that. Kicker or a defense. I'm going to draft Darwin Thompson because this is a guy that profiles as a very athletic back that can do a ton of awesome things in that offense. Like I said, check it out. This is a quick hitting video. Go to that video. We're going to link it below. I'm going to give you more in-depth information on why you should be drafting Darwin Thompson. Marquis Brown is back on the field after passing his physical for the Baltimore Ravens. So should you be spending a pick on him in 2019? If it's Dynasty, sure, why not? If it's redraft, I'm going to stay away, okay? We've already seen plenty of rookie wide receivers have struggles in their first year. I am a little bit concerned that this is an injury that maybe he makes his way back from and then suffers a setback. However, that team is going to have so many rushing attempts. I think Mark Andrews is going to be one of the main weapons there. I'm just not buying into him this year. Marquis Brown, he's a fade for me right now. Let's see him get back on the field and get fully healthy. And if he can do that, then maybe we'll invest in him. But for right now, fade him. Some fantasy owners were probably sweating the news after hearing that Tyreek Hill and Mike Evans both went down this week. But Tyreek Hill just had a quad bruise, and then Mike Evans was just suffering from some cramps. So I have some Evans shares and I have some Hill shares. Actually, I have only one Hill share. I have some Evans shares, and Evans, a guy that I'm heavily investing in. That's a little bit of a prelude to another video coming up. But with those two guys, they are both going to be fine. They are both back on the field. No worries there. Continue to draft them at their ADP. Continue to get them wherever you feel comfortable. Both are going to be strong fantasy contributors in 2019. Is Fitzmagic back? Ryan Fitzpatrick in Miami is expected, as of right now, to be the number 1 quarterback when the season opens. Now, there's still a lot of time. A lot of things can happen. But if you don't like Ryan Fitzpatrick, that's fine. Don't draft him as your quarterback. However, you have to realize that Ryan Fitzpatrick made guys fantasy viable last season while in Tampa Bay. Yeah, he's going to throw a lot of interceptions. He's going to be inconsistent. But Chris Godwin had a good year. Mike Evans had a good year. Heck, even Deshaun Jackson had a good year, and Adam Humphries. All of them were fantasy viable at one point during the season, especially when Ryan Fitzmagic was on the field. So what does that mean in Miami? Now, I know we're fading the Miami offense because we just don't believe in it. However, I'm not so much of that. I think that there's some good options there. Albert Wilson was very good when he was on the field last year. He's the guy I think is a late round stash. Kenny Stills is a little bit more of a best ball buy for me. However, keep in mind that Ryan Fitzpatrick had one of the best deep ball percentages last year in terms of yards per completion and yards per attempt. He threw the ball deep last year and he threw the ball often. That's going to be Kenny Stills this year. He's going to be the deep threat guy. So there is a chance that if you own Kenny Stills and you play him on the correct weeks, he could come away with a big touchdown for you. Can he make Mike Gesicki viable as well? Maybe. He's another guy that I think could end up having a breakout year. And then, of course, we have the running backs there as well. Ryan Fitzpatrick can probably do just enough, even though you don't want to draft him as your fantasy quarterback, which I'm not doing. That's fine. However, he can probably do just enough to give you some depth on your roster. Not guys that you'll start every single week, but some guys that you'll draft and you'll have there for bye weeks, emergencies, whatever it may be. He's going to make some guys fantasy viable this year if he plays all 16 games. One of the most highly touted rookies this offseason, Parris Campbell for the Indianapolis Colts, has got a little bit of a hamstring issue right now. He could be back on the field rather quickly. He might miss a little bit of time. We'll wait and see what happens with that. But for right now, I'm going to continue to draft him as ADP. I don't think there's any reason to drop him. There has been some really nice reports about this guy as a route runner. A lot of people thought he might just be like a straight running deep threat, but this is a guy that runs routes very well. So he's got a chance to do a lot of different things. One person out of training camp even said that he had a chance to be a very special wide receiver. I'm not going to doubt that. I think it's a little bit early to jump on that type of a bandwagon, but I do see Parris Campbell making some sort of a fantasy contribution this year. Continue to draft him at his ADP. Continue to use him as a late round stash. Jake has been telling you for a while now that he's one of his sleepers or under the radar buys this year. So continue to draft him because even with the hamstring issue right now, I'm not going to worry about it so much. We'll wait and see what happens. So the reports on AJ Green might be a little bit worse than we thought. What was supposed to be, just some ligament issues, maybe misses a few weeks and is back before the regular season, has turned into him needing to have a minor surgery, and now he could miss 4 to 6 weeks. I'm going to tell you about AJ Green right now. Don't draft him. Stay away from him. Don't go near him on draft day. If he's fully healthy, I would understand it. I would get it. You're trying to buy a guy that's been one of the best receivers in the game for several years now. However, all of these injuries, I'm firmly off the bandwagon at this point. Let someone else buy him. And then, if that team is experiencing any issues, maybe you could trade a couple of guys that maybe you drafted in a late round. Maybe in redraft leagues, AJ Green, they start to say, hey, he might be back week 4. And you say, you know what? John Brown from the Buffalo Bills is off to a hot start. Parris Campbell, like we just mentioned, is off to a hot start. Maybe you go to the AJ Green owner and you trade those two guys for AJ Green because the AJ Green owner needs to get going. Maybe his team's off to a slow start. Maybe he has some depth issues. Whatever it may be, just throwing out a scenario there. Don't draft him on draft day. Then maybe make him a target as we get closer to return because that AJ Green owner in your league may be chomping at the bits to get some different guys in his lineup because he can't wait on Green anymore or he doesn't want to risk not having him anymore that season. Don't draft him. Trade for him later. No Julio in the preseason? That's all right. No Julio, no problem. Julio Jones has come out and said that he's not going to be playing in any preseason games, but that's all right. Who cares? If you have an issue with a guy sitting out in the preseason or if you have an issue with a guy holding out, I understand your nerves, but come on. It's 2019. Let's catch up to the times. More and more guys are doing it this year. And trust me, I own Julio Jones in a lot of leagues. He's my wide receiver 3 this year. I think he has tremendous upside. I think he's going to have a fantastic season. The one thing that I do not want to have happen is to lose him for an extended amount of time or potentially the entire season because he had a stupid injury in a game that doesn't matter to anybody. He's going to be there practicing with his team. He's been in this offense before. There's no reason to be worried about him missing time this offseason. Don't worry about it. He's not going to play, but that's okay. Speaking of not playing in the preseason, let's turn our attention to the running backs. Ezekiel Elliott, he's headed to Cabo. He's going to work out in Mexico while his team is training in Dallas. That's fine. That's okay. Let the Dallas Cowboys do what they need to. Let Ezekiel Elliott do what he needs to. He's going to show up this year. Don't worry. He's going to be in a Dallas uniform this year. He is going to be playing in week 1. Again, if he starts off a little bit slow, if Julio Jones starts off a little bit slow, that's all right. I would rather these guys be 100% healthy headed into week 1 than not be healthy. I'll take the slow start over missing them for an extended period. And then Melvin Gordon, well, his agent has come out and said, we want to trade. Where is he going to land? Are they going to actually trade him? Doesn't sound like it. They have been trying to work towards a deal. Doesn't sound like Gordon's buying into that. I would much rather draft Ezekiel Elliott first overall than draft Melvin Gordon anywhere in the first round. Melvin Gordon, I think, does have the potential to miss an extended amount of time. I think he does end up playing at some point this year if he's not traded, but he could technically hold out until week 8, and he could still, based on the terms of his contract, be eligible to move forward with another year with another year under his belt, getting him closer to free agency. So Melvin Gordon, I'm going to pass on. Zeke, I'm still buying. Julio Jones, I'm buying. I don't care how many games they miss in the preseason. If they're ready to go week 1, that's fantastic. So those are all of the news and notes that we have for right now, but training camp is an ever-changing landscape. We're going to continue to do these videos, give you a ton of updates. Make sure that you continue to stay tuned into the channel here. Like the video, comment with any questions you have, and most importantly, hit that subscribe button to become a part of Headliner Nation today. And if you do become a part of Headliner Nation, let me know in the comments so I can personally welcome you. Thanks so much for tuning into this episode of the Fantasy Headliners. Have a great one. I'll catch everyone on the next show.